In the distant future, vampires rule the night, but their numbers are dwindling. One podcast is unlike all the others. Half human, half vampire. This is Lefty Speaks, the official podcast for Vampire Hunter D.
Hello, hunters. Welcome back to Lefty Speaks, the Vampire Hunter D podcast. I'm Scott McLean, and with me again are Brandon Easton and Neal Fischer. Today, we are going to be getting into the discussion on music in film and television. We've had quite the lively discussion on Discord about this, so thank you all for everyone who weighed in, gave us their favorite songs and shows and how that has affected them and their life. So let's dig into it, as I know we've got quite a few different songs that we've all pulled together for just ourselves, from our impact on our lives and entertainment journey personally, as well as what a lot of fans gave us for what impacted them. So, Brandon, do you want to kick us off?
Indeed, I do. So first, I want to go back to what Scott said. Thank you so much for the folks on our Discord. We've had some lively discussions, but I want to say the music discussion was the most well-attended and well-supported conversation we've ever had in the history of our Discord. And that goes to show the power and the emotional impact that music has on all of us, especially us big-time hardcore consumers of content, or anime in this particular case, and video games. But, as a kid, I was born in 1974, so I'm part of that generation that got to watch a bunch of original genre IPs come to life. We're talking about, Star Wars, Close Encounters, E.T., Blade Runner, Indiana Jones franchise. You're talking about Ghostbusters. You can go on to John Carpenter's work, The Thing, Nightmare on Elm Street, time and time again. And the one thing that I learned through all of this, and the rebirth of the Star Trek franchise in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, which the theme song became the theme song for Star Trek: The Next Generation. And that was done by the great and incomparable Jerry Goldsmith. And you can't mention Jerry Goldsmith without mentioning, of course, the great John Williams, whose soundtrack is really the soundtrack of Generation X itself. If you were born between 70 and 80, John Williams is a part of your life, whether you know it or not. I think about the fact that when I was in film school, I still remember this to this day, the greatest lesson I learned from film school was about the importance of editing. And they showed this documentary that was about 3.5 hours long. But what it was they took you through the production of one episode of Gunsmoke. For those who don't know, Gunsmoke was at one point the most popular TV show in human history. And it lasted for almost 20 years in the United States. It was a Western. Westerns used to be what Marvel is now, but Westerns were, if you were born in the 2000s and not the evil 1900s, like most of us, Gunsmoke was like literally the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but on television and with Westerns, right? So we watched this whole thing of Gunsmoke, watching how it was shot. And then we watched how every scene was assembled in an editing exercise, and then how it was made into an episode. But the one thing that really shocked me was how important the music was, how the music altered our expectation and our interpretation of the scene. And then later on, I got a chance to see, it was very weird, but watching scenes from Star Wars, the Star Wars trilogy, without music. And they do not have the same impact. Like, most importantly, when Luke goes in Star Wars and Tatooine, he's looking at the two suns setting. Without the John Williams score, it means absolutely nothing. Absolutely
it's boring.
Nothing. It literally is boring. When Vader turns back to Anakin at the end of Return of the Jedi, and it's a big, swell, triumphant score of the Force theme, if you watch that without that, it is really actually kind of stupid. And I hate to even say that, but the music is what creates that scene. So when I think about all the anime I've watched, and of all of us here, you have Ian, our producer, we have all these folks come on. We have watched probably millions of hours of anime in our lives. Yeah. Thousands of pages of manga we've read, But when I think about anime, I think about what Akira did for me. When I saw Akira at the Baltimore, I've mentioned this many times. I saw Akira in 1990 at the Baltimore Museum of Art. It was playing in their theater, and I was just stunned, not just by the animation, but the Akira score is made up of like hyper traditional Japanese throat singing and banging and percussion and all these other things that, as a black kid in Baltimore, I had never heard anything like that. I didn't know that existed. So anime, Akira especially, which still holds a special place in my heart and always will until my dying day, changed my way of viewing what art could be. And I will always love Katsuhiro Otomo for that. And I think about Ghost in the Shell, the opening sequence when you see her being born and the music that's playing, and it's all just like a chant, and and with this like very sparse percussion. Absolutely beautiful stuff. And I think about all the things we've all watched and how many anime titles are known specifically because of their music. I mean, you look at Space Cruiser Yamato, right? They sing the Yamato theme song in the Japanese Self-Defense Navy. They sing that. There's video on YouTube of their choir singing the Yamato theme because of the historical name Yamato and the importance in World War II and the sinking of that vessel. But the fact that the Yamato theme song and the man who sung it, could go on a stage and just sing the first couple of notes and the crowd will just explode in emotion. And I just feel that one of the things we don't talk about enough, especially in our modern dopamine-fueled world of 30-second clicks, is how important music is. I mean, you think about Cowboy Bebop. You think about Neon Genesis Evangelion, The Vision of Escaflowne. You could talk about deep dives, like stuff like the 1990s version of Giant Robo. You could think about even a deeper dive. There's a series I love called King of Braves Gao Gai Gar. But the music is absolutely triumphant, And you think about pop music. We were talking off camera, like Daft Punk, who did the score for Tron Legacy. But Daft Punk is the reason why EDM even matters in the modern world, because they transformed EDM from just like, drunken clubbers in Ibiza to a global phenomenon. But their their last album that they did together was Random Access Memories. They had Get Lucky. That was the big hit, produced with Nile Rodgers. If you look up who Nile Rodgers has worked with for the last 50 years, you'll be blown away. And Pharrell from the Neptunes. They did an EDM album that was composed completely of live instruments. They made live instruments sound like EDM. Like that is it's like watching Shohei Ohtani, play on the Dodgers. It's something you don't expect to ever see, but when you see it, it changes your way of viewing things. So I just think that us having a discussion about the music that's meant stuff to us. I go to a lot of concerts. We were making jokes about it. I go to rock shows, rap shows, R&B shows. I go to acoustic shows. I don't really do EDM because I'm not really big on swinging lit sticks, glow sticks, and doing ecstasy. That's not my vibe. But when it comes to just like live music and music in general, I've seen so many people I wanted to see. I never got to see David Bowie. I never got to see Michael Jackson. But we were talking earlier. I got to see Metallica. I've gotten to see Guns N' Roses. I've gotten to see Janet Jackson. I've gotten to see The Roots multiple times. Jill Scott. I got to see Nas, Wu-Tang Clan. I mean, people who came up during my era. I got to see Prince 3 times, for God's sake. I mean, Prince. And I'm saying... And I'm just saying this, like if you watch his performance at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when they do My Guitar Gently Weeps, and they just literally hand over the exit riff, what he did, he blew every great guitarist on that stage off that stage. You're talking about Neil Young and all these other rock gods, and Prince. Just go look up Prince Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And you will thank me later. It is one of the greatest single guitar performances in human history. And I will bet, I ain't got a lot of money, but I'll bet $1,000 that no one, you can't find another one, So, I mean, you could put Prince on stage with Metallica and he would hang with them or surpass them. That's how great he was. And I love Metallica, and I love a lot of. I got to see Black Sabbath at the Hollywood Bowl. I never got to see Zeppelin. I never got to see John Fogerty from Creedence Clearwater Revival. These are people that really mean something to me. But my point being is that I went out to find music because music means something. And when I think about all the anime, even the Pat Labor series, Pat Labor 2,
Yeah.
directed by Mamoru Oshii, who also did Ghost in the Shell. One of the greatest underrated anime films of all time, but a great soundtrack. There's another unknown series called Gasaraki, which is a mecha series that's based in real Japanese and Middle Eastern conflict, real world, but they transported it to this bizarre world. And if you don't understand Japanese politics, you will not understand the show. I didn't understand the show until somebody on YouTube explained to me what was actually happening, because I knew nothing about Japanese history. But the music they used is music from like multiple shogunistic periods. And the music they were using was reflecting a certain moment that you wouldn't understand if you weren't not Japanese. The example would be if they played a Civil War song during a Star Wars battle. You're like, why are they playing Dixie? But it means something because you're talking about an empire versus rebels and so forth and so on, right? And my point is that there's so many things in anime, musically, that teach us, that inspire us, that change us. And, when we did the Discord question, so many people responded. I mean, Scott likes Final Fantasy. Like Final Fantasy VII, to me, has one of the best soundtracks of all time, as does Final Fantasy VI, released in the U.S. as Final Fantasy III on the Super Nintendo. And even Symphony of the Night, Castlevania, which obviously rips off Vampire Hunter D. These are all things that hit us big. And I don't want to talk the whole time, but I just wanted to start that off and get the conversation going,
For me, my first experience with anime music and seeing it play an integral part in that genre of storytelling was when one of my cousins, so my mom is the youngest of 5.
Wow.
So I have a lot of older Japanese cousins, and the ones that were closest to me in age, they've got about a little more than a decade on me and my sister. And they gave me a VHS copy of Macross Do You Remember?
Oh my God. Wow.
And so this is, J-pop saves not just Earth and the human race, but the universe. And, the whole theme of the early Macross stories is that the slave soldiers' music was something they knew nothing about.
The protocol chop.
And it awoke emotions in them, and that their leaders were like, we don't know why we have this warning against dealing with certain cultures, that we should exterminate them and have no contact with them. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your perspective in this story, that contact happened. They heard the music, they learned of the emotion, and it changed forever the course of their empire, their slave masters, and saved humanity and changed the direction of the universe. And today, I think we still see that in something like K-pop Demon Hunters.
Yep.
Here it is. Instead of it being, the universe and this sci-fi story, it's K-pop saves the world from soul-devouring demons. And I think it's interesting that in a wide range of stories across decades of modern storytelling and entertainment, music often plays a role of saving the world, saving the universe. I can't think of very many stories where music is what destroys life and liberty or happiness.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Music is often an integral part of saving who we are and our culture and society, or redemption, because, of the way it affects us and changes how we look at the world. And I think that's something that has real world implication. Music can cross cultural boundaries, identity boundaries. And that's to me a wonderful thing. And as Brandon mentioned, there are so many things in entertainment that have become iconic to us that if you took the music out, it doesn't work.
Jaws.
kind of like, eh.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's, if you see the scene on mute,
Mm.
how many of us hear it playing in our head or start humming it?
Yeah.
Damn good
Because
point.
you know
Wow.
what belongs there because of the impact it made.
Mm-hmm.
We'll fill it in, and I think that's a great testament to what good entertainment means to us,
Mm-hmm.
and how much music changes things. I had a friend who went to school and got her master's in film composition. And when she was at USC, their school of music, they had them do an exercise where they had to take a scene from a famous show or movie and change the score in multiple ways to change the meaning and feel of the scene. And I thought that was a really interesting exercise when she's walking me through. I think she got assigned, if I remember right. Oh, brother. It's the Kaiser Soze movie, the one with...
Usual Suspects. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yes,
Usual
thank you.
Suspect, yeah.
She got assigned The Usual Suspects.
Wow.
And to change the music in Usual
Oh
Suspects.
my God. Oh my God. That's crazy.
And to change the meaning of different scenes in it. And I was fascinated by the idea because I'm very much a lay person when it comes to music. I enjoy it. I feel its impact, but I will never produce great music or remember a lot of who did it, other than like maybe, John Williams, it doesn't stick with me. The music does, but I'm terrible with all the names. There's a reason I got a B in anatomy in college.
Yeah.
The thing is, Usual Suspects was violin heavy, very violin heavy. And violins have traditionally been associated with thrillers. I mean, in Hitchcock films, they were very heavy, 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 heavy violin. In a lot of slasher films, it's heavy violin because violins can really wear on your nerves. So that to mess around with that would be really, really interesting to me to hear what someone did with the Usual Suspects score. And I don't want to stop Neal from talking. I'm going to say one thing real quick, and I'll shut up for a while. When you look at the film school generation, that being Francis Ford Coppola, Brian De Palma, Oliver Stone, Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, Spike Lee, and Quentin Tarantino, people like that, every single one of those filmmakers is a master of using music
Yeah.
to make their point. Every single one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it reminds me, like when I first started watching Naruto, right? And it sounds like a weird connection, but I didn't think music would, like a scene where they're fighting. You can have a giant fight scene, and in Naruto, I'm crying because the music isn't your typical fight music. It makes you feel the impact of the loss, the sadness that these people are fighting when they shouldn't have to. And I mean, it was just, it can really well you up, even though you're watching some of the most amazing animated fight scenes. And it's music can just amazingly change the mood, add to the mood, and it really can go into your soul. I mean, like probably the most influential movie that I saw in Japan was Princess Mononoke, and I went to see it on opening night in Tokyo, and in what was considered like the best theater in Tokyo at the time, and it was an event, a cultural event. I mean, just leaving the theater, everyone was in a daze. It was just so good. And I remember sitting in the theater, and the music was just affecting my soul. I mean, it elevated obviously the animation was fantastic. The story spectacular. The characters, the voice acting, in Japanese was amazing. But the score just elevated it to a level that it's hard to describe. And I, and I think, you know, movies like you're mentioning has that impact when you have a good score. When, like even in Quentin Tarantino, when he often mixes in popular music
Mm-hmm.
that's so perfectly chosen to exemplify and elevate the scene or the action,
Mm-hmm.
that it affects you emotionally on another level. Yeah.
I saw Joe Hisashi, speaking of Mononoke, at the Hollywood Bowl last year. And when they do that, the ballad of, or what's it called, the Tale of Ashtaka, when it's the opera song, and I mean, I remember seeing, like you. I was living in Boston when Mononoke was released in theaters, and it was at the same theater where I saw Bloodlust, in Harvard Square. I forgot the name of it. And I remember the impact of hearing
Yeah.
that music and the Mononoke score. And to me, that's one of the greatest scores of all time. I mean, Joe Hisashi. I mean, he's done great work. I mean, I
Yeah.
love his work in Kiki's Delivery Service. I like his. I mean, I don't know if he did Ponyo by the Sea, but Ponyo also has a very, very delicate and beautiful score. And the Wind Rises, the last one, the one with the World War II. Was it called The Wind Rises? That was the last.
Yeah.
Um,
I haven't seen the last one.
it was the last one he did about the World War II, the development of the Zero bomber. It was the last Miyazaki film, but set during World War II, and that also had a brilliant score that was very much invoking what Japan was like at the time, right before and then obviously after the destruction of Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Just like you watch, what was it, Grave of the Fireflies?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That such a powerful movie.
Well, I can't watch that again. I'm not watching
Yeah.
that again. But
It's like Schindler's List. Watch it
Yeah,
once, but never
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
yeah, you don't need to watch it. Well, but when you talk about the music, also, there was a whole Evangelion episode number 9, called "Both of You Dance Like You Want to Win," where they had to fight an angel, but Asuka and Shinji had to be synchronized in order to destroy it because
Yep.
the
Yep.
creature kept breaking into 2 pieces. So they had to figure out how, using music, the syncopation, and the movement of the creature, they actually figured out that it was to music. And there's absolutely, I don't know how they wrote that because I would have never thought of something like that. Not that I'm the greatest writer, but goddamn, that was incredible of an idea. And it's like, we tossed that episode, but I'm like, you have to understand the idea that they only could beat that creature by syncopating to a classical arrangement. And that's what happens. And that's the big climax to the episode. No spoiler. I mean, it's like 30 years ago, but it was really, really great stuff. And again, I mean, with Evangelion alone, between the theme song, between the use of the 15 different uses of "Fly Me to the Moon," like who could ever think about that? But when you get to the Evangelion films, the original, not the rebuild, but Death and Rebirth and End of Evangelion. End of Evangelion has a song that sounds just like the Beatles' "Hey Jude," and it's playing when final instrumentality happens, and that song is a very happy song, despite when you read the lyrics, it's all about suicide, and that's the whole kind of underlying theme because Hideyuki Anno was going through some problems,
Yeah.
So, and you think about, I think about Macross. Scott mentioned Macross. Think about Macross. The "Do You Remember Love" song. What's her name? Mari Ijama? What's her name? The lady who sang it. I can't remember her name, but Ijami.
Minmay.
Yeah, the Minmay. Yeah, Minmay. That song actually crossed over to the Japanese pop charts. Which is still kind of rare overall for a lot of anime theme songs and anime songs. But that one, "Do You Remember Love," is one of the it's beautiful. I know people who play it at weddings because people still love that song so much. And I think about all that stuff. I mean, and we look at Macross, when it came to the United States, it became Robotech. And what they did was create a whole new set of English songs based upon the songs they couldn't directly translate from Japanese. And the Robotech soundtrack just had its 40th anniversary. Like right now, it's the 40th anniversary of the Robotech soundtrack. And it's right now, people are still buying it, after all these years.
Yep.
It has to say something, And Macross Plus, Yoko Kanno, good God. I mean, That sound 1995, 96, the OVAs were released. Then they recut it into a movie. Go back and just listen to those soundtracks. I mean, Yoko Kanno was mixing Japanese J-pop with classical music, with EDM before it was EDM, with like weird spoken word stuff. So great stuff out there.
I also love how you get a lot of people as time progresses being inspired by, who came before them and the impact they've made. And I find it interesting. Like there was a guy who got his start working for Hans Zimmer.
Wow.
And I think his first name is Ramek. I can't remember his last name to save my life, but he did the music to Westworld.
Okay.
The Westworld reboot.
Wow. I
And
didn't know that.
also, if I remember correctly, I think he did Game of Thrones. And so you have people like that, him, John Williams, Hans Zimmer, they'll create a theme that the moment you hear it, it's like, the Final Fantasy series from Uematsu, that music that comes in with the login at so many of the Final Fantasy games, that opening bit, you hear that and that's where it takes you, is to Final Fantasy, or the theme for Pirates of the Caribbean, Star Wars, Indiana Jones. The moment you hear it, you know what it is.
Yeah, McQuarrie in God of War does that for me. The opening music to the reboot of God of War. Bear McQuarrie just immediately dun dun dun, and I immediately know what it is. Yeah.
And to me, I think music is a fascinating topic because of its ability to embed those memories and feelings and emotions in us, and be that trigger for the nostalgia. I remember seeing a behind the scenes bit on Star Trek, the reboot with J.J. Abrams, and talking about how they felt like they had to get to a certain point in the movie before they could use the Star Trek theme, because he felt like they had to earn being able to put the Star Trek theme music into the movie.
It's an interesting take. Yeah.
To me, it was a really interesting take on it, that, we're doing a reboot, so we have to earn the legacy.
Yeah, instead of like kind of, because the music could very cheaply give you the nostalgia, right? So I hadn't even thought about that, but basically establishing the reboot, the new Star Trek, with authenticity in other ways before you kind of play with the emotions that a song can. It's like smells. It seems to me like a really good song or good score can directly hit just the way smells can immediately throw your memories into exactly where you were at that time in your childhood when you first experienced it or whatever.
Yeah.
And music can do that. I feel maybe it's not scientifically how the brain works, but
yeah, no, it most definitely.
Neurologically, it has been proven music
that
does that. Absolutely.
Yep. And I think some of the contrasts that people come up with in storytelling makes it also stick. There's one from the Westworld reboot that really stuck with me. For Ramen, thank you, Ian, for the note. He did a instrumental version of Paint It Black.
Wow.
To a scene where it's a rather dark and violent scene of the robot rebellion. Spoiler, sorry for a bit of Westworld. But at this point, how long's the reboot been out and been done? Go back and check it out if you've got the time. And I love, because it felt like almost a counterpoint to what you're seeing on the screen. And in some ways, while the song is upbeat, I originally heard that song for the first time, Paint It Black, because it was used as the theme for a Vietnam series.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was a fictional series following, I can't believe I'm forgetting the name of the show, Tour of Duty.
Okay.
It was the theme song for Tour of Duty, which the Vietnam War gets painted as a very, very dark, terrible moment of history, I think, from every angle I've ever seen it portrayed or discussed from.
Yeah.
And, if you've listened to the lyrics for that song, the main theme is the whole world is black. And the instrumental version of it, if you've heard the lyrics in seeing that to that scene in Westworld, I think made it that much more impactful. It's not, like this action score. It's this haunting rendition of this song. And I thought it really transformed that scene. That's that combination of that orchestral version of Paint It Black to that scene, that part of the show, is what really made me be like, okay, I really respect this composer. They've done a great job.
Thank you for listening to Lefty Speaks, the official Vampire Hunter D podcast, hosted by Brandon Easton, Neal Fischer, and Scott McLean. This podcast is created by Unified Pictures and 9 Realms. Narration by Lauren Evallen-Muller. Recording and editing by 9 Realms. Produced by Scott McLean and Ian E. Muller. Based on the works created by Hideyuki Kikuchi. Happy hunting.